Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name's Naomi Bennett. I'm a CEO and founder of Lesflicks. Thank you for joining us here today. We are here to talk to Shelley Thompson. She's the director of Pearls, which we've just released on Lesflicks, a short film. We will also be talking about the film that followed Pearls. So Pearls is a prequel to the feature film Dawn, Her Dad and the Tractor, which you may or may not have heard about. We'll be talking about both these films, and also just generally a bit with Shelley about who she is, why she's made these films, and what else she's doing. So it's a chance for you to find out a bit more about how these films get made, why they get made, maybe some of the process and timelines. Find out a bit more. If you want to ask any questions, you can do so. If you're on Lesflicks or on YouTube or Facebook, you can ask questions in the chat. It will come up for us live. Otherwise, you can just watch as well. If you are enjoying this and you found it on social media, then please do share so that it kind of gets shared with other people. So the first thing I'm going to do for anyone who hasn't seen the film is show the trailer, so you can get a bit of a feel for what it is we're talking about today. And then we'll bring Shelley into the room and talk to her about the short film Pearls. So if you give me one moment, we will just change this over and we will watch the film. And so this is the trailer for Pearls.
Brandon, you deal with it. I'm going.
This can't go on, lovely boy.
What if he sees me? He'll kill me.
Oh, don't be silly. He won't kill you.
They gave me those pearls for my 16th.
Do you miss him?
Every day.
Hello? Mom?
Oh.
Please.
I probably should have given these to you sooner.
Hey, there's a change that's coming without warning. Dawn breaks, so the sun will rise.
Okay, so without further ado, if you are watching on Lesflicks, I should just add there is a 3 or 4 minute lag. So if you do ask questions, just bear in mind it'll take a little while to come through to us, but obviously we will see them. But yeah, I'd like to introduce to join me up on the screen Shelley Thompson. So let's just bring her in now. Hi, Shelley, welcome.
Hi.
So I guess obviously we just watched the trailer. Do you want to just, I guess, start off by introducing who you are? I think what's not sometimes useful to know is maybe when you first kind of thought about making this short film, what the kind of reason was for making this, why you chose maybe a short film as well, and the topic. So do you want to just give us a little bit of an introduction?
Sure. I'm Shelley Thompson. I'm based in Nova Scotia, Canada. For those of you who don't know the country terribly well, we're on the East Coast. So we're the closest, one of the closest provinces to the UK, which is great from my point of view because I lived for a long time in the UK and it's my spiritual home. So it's nice to be the closest place I can be practically on this continent to you guys. The film was made, I think I made it in 2017/2018, which is when it was coming out. And in 2015, my child, born biologically female, began their transition to male. And at the point that we knew they were going to transition, he was going to transition, we were still living in a rural, very rural community in Nova Scotia that's sometimes affectionately known as Little Vatican. So that gives you many, many clues to why this was such a profound impact on a family that are not particularly religious and certainly not Catholic in our comprehension of spirituality. So I began work first on my feature film, Dawn, Her Dad and the Tractor, in 2016. And I received several grants to be able to write that. I wrote it and I thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to make this as a director without a proof of concept or without some sense of, showing people where I think this story began. And so I sat down and wrote Pearls in one go. It takes me a long time to write stuff. I write and agonize and rewrite, and but Pearls came out very fast and very clearly, and I presented it to a friend who's a producer in Nova Scotia and said, what do you think? And they said, let's make it. And so we did, and it made a big difference to us in many, many ways. It certainly set me on the road to making the feature film, but it also really clarified for me and crystallized for me the significance of material about and for the trans community. I felt very strongly that my support as a parent had to just keep coming out in whatever way I could make it available, because this is my only child, and everybody's child has the significance to them that my child does. So the safety and respect that community are afforded are everything to me. And so that's where Pearls came from.
Fantastic. So obviously it's 2023 now. I know we've obviously had a bit of a pandemic, but did that did the kind of release get impacted in any way, or kind of what were your hopes for the film, and what has it been like kind of getting it in front of the audience, and what has the reaction been as well? Because I think particularly now I feel like actually it's a really good time to put it out, because obviously across the world trans rights and LGBT rights are really kind of sadly coming to the forefront as along with a lot of other issues. But
yeah,
what would you say has been that kind of for you, that impact?
Yeah, so the two films kind of conflate for me in a weird way, but Pearls came out in 2018. We didn't dream that the pandemic was going to happen. We had no sense of where that was coming, and in fact, we were on a trajectory at that point, despite the fact that our neighbors to the south in Canada were, who they were, and we were struggling with a kind of a very redneck or reactionary or cruel backlash that was only just beginning, and it felt like it was actually galvanizing people to a place of strength and unity. And so when Pearls was made and Pearls came out, Pearls got a great reaction from the festivals that it went to. It won several prizes. It engendered a lot of conversations, and it meant that going forward, people were ready to hear the feature film story, which takes this story to its next step. And I think, that's been very important. The feature film was made during the pandemic. It was kind of it was the first feature film on the East Coast of Canada. I think it was the first feature east of Toronto in Canada to be made. So it was just like one big, and then the release, the same thing with the feature film. It was all one big friggin' experiment. We just didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if we could get insurance on set. We didn't know if, when we got it into the cinemas, whether anybody would go. It was really difficult. Even the post, by comparison, making Pearls was just a joy, because I was in a room with people during post-production and during editing and during, I was with real people doing real things in real time. But with the feature film, I was always in a virtual situation. I was in a virtual situation in terms of doing post-production. Post-production color correction is just like a nightmare when you're on Zoom. Like, everybody has different monitors. It has horrible. I wouldn't wish it on my worst filmmaking enemy, and I don't have any.
Yeah, I can imagine. I know how much my iPad, my phone, and my computer all look very different, and so yeah, you can imagine. You're like, what color is it really?
Yeah, and same with sound. You're working with sound, and you're not able to sit in the space with the sound designer, so you're going, I think I'm hearing what you're hearing. I trust that I'm hearing what. So all those things considered, we were happy that the film came out
Yeah.
at all. But yeah, so that was the pandemic. And now, I'm very glad Pearls is online. I had such a lot of response when I first put it out, people wanting to know where they could see it. And of course, as a short filmmaker, there is nowhere for you to put your films unless you get involved with an organization like Lesflicks, which I'm very grateful to in the UK, and an organization in the US, where they've placed it on their platform. So now people can actually go see short films and or this short film. And that means hopefully it's also going to drive interest to not just my feature film about a family of, the family of a trans individual, but lots of films. There's some great films coming out these days about trans individuals, non-sexualized films, non-violent films, non-urban films, films that take us to places where trans people are living, which is not just big cities, in America.
Yeah, I do think kind of as a LGBTQ plus community, the kind of thought is, oh, what's on Netflix, what's on Amazon Prime, the big streamers. But the reality is that I did some research, and actually I think it was 2020 and 2021. Netflix invariably has maybe 10 feature films. Amazon Prime has more, but they're quite hard to find. I don't know if you realize, like, so for example, if you search like lesbian on Amazon Prime, all the porn comes up in amongst the films. So you have to kind of like self-filter, but obviously you take out 18, you lose a lot of the authentic content as well. Most people think maybe, each year we get maybe, 4 or 5 films. 2020, just in lesbian feature films, I found 50 releases. And I think a lot of people are shocked by that. And I think you're right. In short films, I mean, I couldn't even start to count. I know we don't have an accurate number, because the reason I launched Lesflicks, so many of them, you see them on the festival circuit, you're like, this is amazing short, and then they just vanish. And I think as a community, we want to see those authentic stories, but people don't necessarily know where to find them. Filmmakers don't know where to put them. There is this real disconnect. The audience are desperate to see these stories, but it is about putting the two together. And I think that's one thing I find, really important, is actually it's not just about feature films. I think actually short films can be amazing in kind of giving you a snapshot or a kind of a start of a story, and allow you to choose the ending or, interpret in a way you like. And actually, I think sometimes short films can be more challenging to create, because you have such a short period of time in which to tell a story that makes sense to the viewer. You don't have so long to do your character development and things. So obviously you've done a short film and then you've done a feature film. As you say, the short film's a prequel to the feature film. What was the reasoning for doing it in that order? Do you have a preference? And I know you've obviously had very different experiences because of just life in general, but and for anyone who's maybe thinking about making a short film, like, would you recommend it?
Oh gosh, I mean, it was just it was practicality on one level. I knew, I'd made several short films before Pearls, but I'm not a whippersnapper, and so time is of the essence. And I knew that having I think I'd made 3 short films prior to Pearls, and I just wanted to be on a set. I wanted to get better at what I did. And I knew I wouldn't. And I knew that the time that was going to elapse between my last short film and making Pearls would be long. And the time between making my last short film and a potential feature would be a lot longer. So it was a choice of, how do I get into my happy place? How do I get back on set, working with actors, telling stories that matter to me, and making sure that they're getting in front of people who may be impacted by them? Because I still believe, at base, I'm a storyteller, and I look for any avenue to tell stories, because I kind of believe in Ibsen's example of, you know, the door that slammed around the world, and a door that in the doll's house, where a woman slammed a door and left her husband, and it was the first time it had been seen on stage. You know, those moments in viewing history, art history, stage history, screen history, those moments change our world, change perspectives, change hearts, change minds, make people look at their prejudices, I really believe, and maybe adjust them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's interesting, because I think at the moment, I think short films are actually probably a bit safer to make right now, particularly when we've got like obviously the writer's strike, because finances aren't working. And it's the same with the streaming platforms. You know, everyone's cutting content rather than taking on content. But I think also as an audience, we're very short of time these days. So the short films right now, I think, are a safer way to hone your craft. As you say, time is of the essence. You can make things quicker, you can be more creative with the short film as well. And I feel like with a feature film, it's a lot harder to get the money together for a feature film. It's a lot more investment, and you know, the challenge obviously is that kind of making that back. So I must admit, right now, anyone who's kind of spoken to me, I'm kind of like, right now is the kind of perfect time for shorts, for kind of playing around with stuff, being creative, whilst the whole industry settles, so to speak. And actually myself as well, I've been trying to get onto some different sets, because while I've been doing a lot of distribution, I think it's nice to get out and actually experience being on set. I think particularly independent films offer a real experience of actually creating the content, and it's lovely to get behind the scenes and see how things are made. So yeah, no, I think, and you know, and I think as well, right now with the way everything's going, it's really important these stories do get told and people hear about them. So yeah, and I think the other thing I really noticed was, I've been watching content creation, and I think you mentioned a lot more trans stories being made. I was really impressed to see just how many are kind of coming through. And I think over the next 2 to 3 years, definitely being made, and definitely at film festivals, it'll see where they end up. And that's always my fear. Where do these, you know, stories end up? And there are very few LGBT platforms, which means there are very few places for films. And I think it's important that as audiences, we follow the filmmakers. That's really important for obviously showing there's an audience, and also being able to kind of track where these films go, and maybe also help as a creator. So in terms of for yourself, like your social media, if anyone wants to kind of follow you or any of the films you've made, what's the social media handles people should be looking out for?
Yeah, I'm not fantastic at this, but Pearls has its own site on Facebook. But people can follow me personally, and I am always, you know, trying to post on Instagram and Facebook under my own name, Shelley Thompson. I think my Instagram handle is at Shelley Thompson 2017, maybe. I don't know. I think so. You know, I do talk about what I'm doing there. I talk about politics, I feel like, a lot, but you know.
Well, I think it's necessary right now. I think, unfortunately, I always say to people, particularly I think when there's a connection to communities that are maybe more niche or not mainstream. I don't like to say niche, but I think, you know, that's how we're perceived. Life is political. I used to always say I'm not political, and then I realized, actually, I think once you're in any kind of community where your rights have had to be given to you and therefore can be taken away, and actually, I think right now, particularly in the US, that actually becomes to women, you know, with abortion rights and stuff as well. So I think, you know, anyone in there, like I say, I'm not political, but I think actually it's about whether you're what I call kind of accidental political, whereby you stand up for yourself and for other people that maybe have their rights infringed. Yeah. So I think, you know, the way of the world right now, I think, unless you're in a position of privilege, we're all having to be a little bit political, whether that's being just sharing information, making sure people know about things on the internet that are untrue. There's a need, I think, for a bit of a voice.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the young trans woman who played Dawn in the feature film, Maya Henry, she said, and I thought it was brilliant. She said, I'm an activism because living my life is an act of activism in a world where people want me to be invisible or want me to disappear. So it's true. And as a white woman with just that baseline amount of privilege, I feel that as the mom of a trans man, I need to I need to be fighting tooth and nail for him and his community.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's different ways to do that, and I think some people just think of activism and politicizing as in marching and protesting, but I think there are many different ways. And actually, the one thing I really believe is that TV and film has the power to change lives, because it's when you watch something fictional that you maybe haven't experienced before that you suddenly get an insight into that life, and that is what changes kind of your exposure or your awareness of things. So it's a great way to kind of be political in a way that's not, as I say, protesting or marching, but still having a big impact. And actually you can reach a lot more people, and people that maybe wouldn't have been impacted or got awareness to you. So obviously Pearls is a prequel to Dawn, Her Dad and the Tractor. Now you've got different actors. Now, was that purely about timing, or was that a particular choice? Because obviously actors is something that often comes up as well, is like how you choose who you have in your films. So do you want to tell us a little bit about kind of choosing the actors for the two films and why they're different? Because some people who do watch both might be like, well, hang on a minute, why is there a difference here?
Yeah, I mean, there were several reasons. The young woman who was lovely in Pearls, Michelle Rain, was leaving the industry and working. She graduated yesterday, I think, with 2 degrees as a teacher. So she was changing her life, and she was, I'm sure she would have done it if we had decided, to press her to do it. But part of our impulse was finding somebody who was quite similar to Rob because of the family connection. And Maya Henry, who plays Rob's daughter, is kind of uncannily like him, and quite like the sister in Dawn, Her Dad and the Tractor. So that was one big element. But the other element was social media and the impact in terms of getting further funding. Maya had brought quite a large audience with her. Both Michelle and Maya are beautiful human beings and terrific to work with. And so from my point of view, going either way would have been great. But certainly the film industry, the film business is a business. And when your funders are looking at the value of a package, they're looking at how much do your leading actors bring to your corner. And so Maya, brought quite a lot in terms of numbers, and that was certainly influencing us. Although, they were both beautiful, talented people. So it's
Yeah. And I think that's interesting because obviously that's why I said about following the social as well. There's many, I think that's where obviously we love watching film, but I think for audiences to understand how difficult it is to make, and you're right, the people who bring the money often say this money is attached to this actor or this location, and that can be challenging, because that's where I think you have the creativity meets the money, and I don't think always that's kind of understood, but that's why social media presence and marketing, there's so many things that go into it, and often actors, and I think we see that probably more. I've certainly in the past seen LGBT films get announced with a particular actor, and the community's obviously like really kind of gone against it and gone, we're not happy with this for particular reasons, and then the film's just vanished. And I think often that's because you know, the funders, the producers probably, you know, if they lose the actor, they lose the film, the funding. So it's a real challenge sometimes to get that kind of work. I think whilst we'd love films to be purely creative, the reality obviously is they cost a lot to make, and there's definitely the business side of stuff as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so a little bit, I guess, side topic. In terms of, you said festivals and awards and things, you've had 2 films, short and a feature. What's been your best experience about festivals, and why was the festival circuit important to you for these films?
Well, actually, I had 3 shorts prior to Pearls, so, and all of them have gone to festivals. Actually, one of them, Duck Duck Goose, went to Clermont-Ferrand, which is one of the biggest short film festivals in the world, and that was a fabulous experience. But the short films at festivals is significant because you connect with other filmmakers, you make alliances, you make friends, you have conversations around the world with different people, you know, that's really valuable because you never know where your projects are going. You never know when you might get the opportunity to shoot somewhere else, or be looking for somewhere else or somebody else to partner with. So film festivals are great from that point of view, but they're also, the best part of them is going to movies. I love movies. I love storytelling. And so I would sit and watch and watch and watch. And I would look at how people were telling their stories. I would look at, this is a really interesting way of communicating this. This is the right person. Oh my God, I love that actor, and they're Canadian, so I'm going to keep my eye on them. It brings so much to you. And that's true of short films and features. I mean, I'm operating at a different level. I'm not operating at the Cannes level. So for me, it's not about, those bigger festivals, and going to those bigger festivals are often about, finding your distributor or cementing distribution deals, making the next deal for the next film. So they're financial, oftentimes. And of course they can be for independent films as well. And there's lots of evidence to support that, and lots of situations where that's true. But for me, that hasn't so much been my experience. Mostly it's been, I've had invitations to other film festivals, or I've had, opportunities to work with people beyond, my borders. Mostly as an indie filmmaker, that's been my experience, but it's all good.
Yeah, I must admit, our local film festival to me here is BFI Flair. It's 10 days, and I pretty much live there. I get there like early in the morning, I stay till midnight, and I watch as many films as I can. And I love the fact that they tend to put short films into blocks, and I end up watching films that I would never normally choose to watch. There's always films that I'm like, I would not have chosen this, and I think it's just a fantastic opportunity to kind of, and as I say, the reason I launched Lesflicks, a lot of these films also, sometimes if you don't see them at film festival, you don't actually know where to find them. I think, so for me as well, I think, the networking side's fantastic, but just the, 10 days of just back-to-back film is just heaven, really. So fantastic. So tell us at the moment, so obviously 2017, 2018 Pearls, 2020, 2021, Dawn, Her Dad and the Tractor. What are you doing at the moment? Is there anything else for anyone who's interested in what you're writing about, or making, directing? What's going on at the moment? What else should people be aware of?
Well, a couple of things. As a result of Dawn, Her Dad and the Tractor, there's a lovely trans man that lives in Toronto, so a long way from me, who is a brilliant photographer, dog photographer, who's been following trans individuals who've been rescued by their rescue animals. So the stories are extraordinary. And, Jack is from Guernsey, came to Canada and transitioned went through a very tough time himself, Jack Jackson, but created a life for himself in Toronto, was able to become his authentic self. And part of why he was able to become his authentic self is because he rescued a dog that saved his life. And so he chases or he discovers stories about individuals who have had similar experiences. He takes stunning photographs of them, collects their stories. And so we are now working together on a documentary, the first segment of which we hope will be shot in Nova Scotia in the fall, moving from community to community. So mostly these are going to be individuals living in rural situations, trans and queer individuals in those rural situations, which, you know, I'm particularly interested in because that's where I live, and I feel it's underrepresented at the moment. So I'm working on that. That's a series called Rescued by Love. We'll see if we get the money and get to go forward with that. We're all pretty excited about it. But I also have my first novel coming out, which is via Nimbus Vagrant Press, which is the biggest publisher east of Toronto here in Canada. And they commissioned me to write a version of the feature film Dawn, Her Dad, and the Tractor, but it's quite a different version. It's written from several points of view, and it's really, the joy of it is being able to dive in depth into the background and the stories of the characters that people that little town.
Fantastic. What's that novel going to be called?
Oh, sorry. That novel is called Roar, and
okay.
We're hoping it's going to be released simultaneously in the UK, I think in the fall. So that would be October, probably October, November. It's going to come out here, I think, at the end of October. So yeah.
Fantastic. No, that's really good to hear. For anyone who's joined us partway through, we're going to play the trailer again so you can get a bit more of an idea of Pearls. So we've been talking about short film Pearls, which has recently been released on Lesflicks, so you can watch that now. And it is the prequel to the feature film Dawn, Her Dad, and the Tractor. Now, Shelley, Dawn, Her Dad, and the Tractor, is that available yet, or is that still kind of being sorted out? Like, what's the situation with that
film? It's
film?
sort of in limbo land. Pardon me?
I saw it at the festival circuit, so obviously I've seen it again pre-release. So where is that one at the moment?
It's on release in Canada at the moment. It's just been part of a big sale that's gone to South America. It's with a distributor / sales agent called Incendo, which are out of Canada, and we're hoping that, because I get asked every day about when it's going to be, particularly in the States, when it's going to be available on platforms there. And I wish I could answer that.
Well, yeah, this is one of the challenges as well, isn't it? Is obviously when you do give your film to a distributor, it kind of comes out your hands. I think it's obviously important for people to follow you, so that obviously as soon as you know, you will share it. But yeah, this is one of the challenges. Like, I saw Dawn, Her Dad, and the Tractor on the festival circuit, as I say, and it's a fantastic film. Both the films are really, I think they're very important stories, but I think also they are very accessible, and the way they've been made just means that I think whether you're part of the community, whether you know someone part of the community, or even if you have no knowledge of anyone in the community, they're just very relatable, and I think really kind of good for kind of just giving an insight into family dynamics and acceptance, and just really accessible. And so I really hope that obviously it gets a wider release shortly. But I'd say to anyone who is interested in that film, follow you, and obviously wait patiently, or not so patiently. Feel free to tag Incendo and ask them like what's going on, because that again also helps as well.
Do that.
Yeah.
Ask them when do I get to see it? That's what I'd like to know.
Yeah. But no, thank you so much for joining us today and talking about your films. It's been really fantastic to hear a little bit. As I say, it's nice just to go a bit behind the scenes, hear a bit about making these things. Really fantastic. It's obviously, and obviously we should mention that it's not just yourself as the director, but there's obviously a producer as well and cinematographer. And always, I think understanding how many people go into making a film. Always watch the credits, because that tells you just how much love went into a film. No idea on the money side, but definitely I think just the sheer amount of people is quite shocking sometimes. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we kind of finish up today? Anything you'd like to kind of, I guess, add to the group or anything?
Not particularly. I would just encourage people to keep having conversations. There's a huge conversation in North America at the moment about drag and what that means.
And in the UK as well.
Yeah. So many misunderstandings about where drag has come from and its roots in, way before pantomime, but in pantomime as family entertainment, and this comprehension of it as a sexualized thing, it is just insane. So I just would encourage people to keep standing up and calling for love and respect for every community, because everyone deserves it. If you don't want your children to see drag, don't take them.
Yeah,
pretty simple.
Well, I think, and that's kind of, again, one of those things that applies to a lot of different things. If you don't like roller skating, don't go. It doesn't mean that other people can't do it. And I think
exactly.
There has been this kind of, I think in the UK it's been because of the politicalization of the LGBT community, and then a small proportion of those people unfortunately have very loud voices and are very coordinated, and I think it has kind of blown it a bit out of context. And I think also there's been a lot of scaremongering, and I would say to anyone, like, get an informed view from multiple sources is my biggest recommendation on that, because I think there's a lot of very vocal people, but I often find that the most vocal people aren't necessarily giving a very accurate picture. And so it is important, I think, sometimes to, if you're not sure what it is, why not ask the organisers? And I think, and as you say, pantomime's been around for years, and so many children go to pantomime, and there's always a drag character in there. So that in itself shows you that drag is not sexualized. There is a adult version of drag that happens in bars and clubs. And again, that I feel like is
kids there. Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. And the notion that the notion that everybody has to ascribe to the same way of thinking, if something isn't impacting them, and it's not, like, why on earth would one person want to take responsibility for a whole bunch of other people when it's so clearly ill-informed? I just don't understand it. But it's where we are. Everybody seems to need a soapbox, and any soapbox will do.
For me, the comparison is, if people aren't aware, it's like restaurants. You can have takeaway eating, you can have different restaurants that have allowed kids, ones that are adults only, and it's the same as like rugby. You can have touch rugby or full rugby, sevens, where they, some, and you have football where you have 5-a-side, 7-a-side, full football. And again, drag is just like that. There are different types of that, and I think trying to conflate all the different types together is where we've got to. And again, I think, so for me, it just comes down to just fact checking. But hopefully for anyone who maybe is watching this who doesn't have an idea, that might help a little bit into the context. There's it's like tomatoes. There's not one tomato, there's several types of tomatoes, they're different sizes. And I think it's just about adding a little bit of common sense and questioning, am I being told the whole story, or am I being riled up? In the way that our governments do the same thing as well. They tell us one story and get us busy to distract us from something else. And I think that's what's happening in the UK. It's a distraction for other things that aren't going so well. So hopefully it will improve.
And in the US as well. And that the sadness for me is that, Canadians, who we like to believe and busily pat ourselves on the shoulder for being rational, kind, mostly liberal thinking individuals, are being led by this weird American misogyny and transphobic and queerphobic, and, which has, as you say, it's a distraction to get people not to look at gun control or the terrible mess in their governments. I mean, it's just
and the cost of living crisis and
Yeah, it's just
the
that.
economics in general. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, we've gone a little bit political, but I feel like it is important. I feel like you can't have life without politics, and I think particularly right now it's important to reference that. But at the end of the day, film is a way to escape, and I think that is also why it's important to be able to escape into a world where it's safe, where it's informative, where it's entertaining. Even for a moment, that's very good for our mental health. So it's been lovely to talk about Pearls and Dawn Head and the Tractor. I hope people will watch the films. Obviously, reach out, let us know what you think about it. Reach out, follow Shelley to find out how you can watch any of her other films as well. As I say, we're going to finish by showing the trailer for Pearls again. I'll also at the end of that put in 2 little trailers, one for Lesflicks in general, and then also that we have a Lesflicks subscription called Chick Flicks, which is particularly for 12 to 16-year-olds and allies or people new to LGBT. So it's just a bit doesn't include anything sexual, and I think again that's important because not everyone's on the same journey. So we're going to play those 3 videos just at the end of this live stream for anyone who's interested or maybe missed the trailer for Pearls at the beginning. And Shelley, I'd just like to say thank you so much for joining us today. It's been very informative. This video will remain on YouTube and social for people to watch back, and also on Lesflicks for people to watch. So we'll hopefully exponentially reach more and more people. And if you found this informative as well, please do share it. So
Thank you. Thanks.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye. Thank you.
Brandon, you deal with it. I'm going.
This can't go on, lovely boy.
What if he sees me? He'll kill me.
Oh, don't be silly. He won't kill you.
They gave me those pearls for my 16th.
Do you miss him?
Every day.
Hello? Mom?
Please.
I probably should have given these to you sooner.
Hey, there's a change that's coming without warning. Dawn breaks, so the sun will rise.
Want a quick and easy way to watch some of the best lesbian, bisexual, and queer films out there?
All I can do is think about the next time that you're going to touch me.
With access to feature films, shorts, and web series?
I do.
Then Lesflicks is the place for you.
No way.
This looks like a great space.
For a low monthly cost, you can watch some amazing oldies.
So you can't talk about your problems while I'm naked?
It is a distraction.
Somebody's having a bad day. And catch some great new content, all while supporting the artists directly.
I am utterly speechless.
After all, who doesn't love women loving women?
Soy enamorada.
Start your free trial today and enter a world made for you.
Come on. You know you want to.
We're here for you. Ready for what?
Come on, I know you're excited too.